I'm going to finish on some more a bit more practical tips on injury, as in avoiding them. So talked about how chronic injuries gradually build up over time through compensations, and poor movement patterns will ultimately, so if you're forcing yourself into a squat with a barbell or doing wall balls, you're forcing yourself below parallel, even though you haven't really got the mobility to do that, and your hips are tucking under and your back's round in every rep. That eventually, or if your ankles might be rolling in because you've not got the mobility in your ankles, that is, there's going to be a price to pay for that eventually. At some point, it's going to manifest itself in some kind of pain or injury that then takes a long time to undo, because we've entrenched this movement pattern that our body's adapted to, and then it's very hard to undo. So the concept of it's only a rep if this, you do this, that, and the other, is that competition mindset versus not everybody has to squat below parallel.
No,
not everybody has to squat. If you're really limited mobility wise, doing a lunge with good form in a workout it will be better for you than squatting potentially.
Well, I think that was a real CrossFit thing, wasn't it? Saying that actually a squat must look like this, must be below parallel, but that was only so that we can compare, or they could compare within a competition setting.
Yeah.
But actually, for moving is moving. There's no one who can say this is the correct way to do something, this is the incorrect way. Obviously, there are more optimal movement patterns, and certainly when you're adding load, you want to make sure that you are moving in a safe way. But actually, training and moving different planes of motion and different angles, so that you're kind of not just constantly going in one direction or in one movement pattern, I think is also a good thing.
Yeah. So that's the movement box that's on the wall in the gym.
Yeah.
All your planes of movement, all your different grip types, all your different types of contraction, and as much variety as possible. So the squat's just a made up. The squat is a human invention. Like the word squat is just a term to try and describe a certain kind of movement, but it's not. There's no rule book that says a squat has to look like this. Like you said, there's optimal ways that our joints should move, and everyone's got different joints, so they may all look different. But if you're trying to force yourself into that squat so you look like it should look, when actually your back's rounded and your ankles are caving in, then that's kind of not the point of doing the exercise in the first place. So I think it's just really important that the big takeaway really is just as we've talked about is just moving well, and obviously coaches are there to kind of help you with that. If body awareness is a big part of that, but also being mindful of what your body's telling you. So if you're if you are feeling like the classic ones are kipping pull up. I used to do kipping pull ups because they were in the workout, and I knew that the next day my shoulder would be sore, but I'd do them anyway. And that's a long time ago. But the mentality of I'm going to do kipping pull-ups no matter what, even though you might not have the prerequisite strength, the shoulder mobility, the control through your lats to stay engaged in the kip, all these things. If they're not in place, then a kipping pull-up for you is gonna end up in getting pain and injury, versus somebody who has got the capacity to do them, who can do kipping pull-ups and there's no issues. And that's the kind of you have to know what you have to work within your what you've got capacity wise, and just be mindful that anything you do outside of that, you're putting tissues under load that they don't really want to be under, and you're opening yourself up potentially to pain and injury and stuff.
But also it's that short term versus a long term view, isn't it? doing something in the short term for who knows what reason, it's usually the ego. If it's something that you know that you shouldn't really be doing, and that should comes into it, or shouldn't, but you do it anyway, versus kind of taking that longer view over the next kind of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and just thinking, is what I'm doing now going to enable me to feel good at later points in life?
And I can attest that it doesn't.
I think we all know the answer to that. And it doesn't mean not trying to train to do stuff, or like if you've got a goal, really working towards that. But that's the point. It's the work. You wouldn't expect to be able to do certain things without putting some work in. And that's the same with the body. But knowing why you're doing it, not just doing it because someone's told you to do it.
We can't skip steps to get to a goal, thinking that like you're not going to get there. Like just skirting around the hard work that you've got to, the foundations you've got to lay to get to that goal and do it well. That's all part of the process. Is building a foundation. It's not the day when you get the goal. It's all the stuff you do that leads up to it. And if it's all about performance, and if it's all about, I'm not actually that bothered about whatever injury. I just want to perform. I want to do this. Your performance, if you're working within your capacity for 2 years, at that 2-year mark, you're going to perform a lot better than the you that pushed it, got injured after 6 weeks, had 3 weeks off, came back, started pushing it again, got injured again after 6 months, had 3 weeks off. After that 2-year mark, that person's going to be far surpassed what this other person's ever going to get to, because we're just going in this cycle of getting injured or pain and never actually being able to progress.
Do you think that all? I mean, we need to wrap it up, don't we? I think that I do think that all comes back to what we were talking about in the summer. Like, what's your why? Why are you doing this in the first place? Like, why are you choosing to do this stuff with your body, with your mind? And if you're really clear on that, then hopefully injury won't happen, because you've got a goal in mind, or a purpose, and you're always working towards that. You're not kind of getting diverted because something looks really cool, or whatever it is. Why you're doing it, and you stick to that.
And if your why is like I just said, if your why is performance and competition, you can't perform and compete if you've tried to cut corners, got injured, or tried to do things your body's not ready for, got injured. You can't perform or compete if you're injured, or
I think there's nothing wrong, is there? Like, everyone's got different goals. We've all got different things that we want to achieve. But as long as you know why you're trying to do it. So if it is that I want to get a handstand, free handstand, that's fantastic. But just know that you maybe won't be as able in other areas because you're focusing on getting that handstand. And so you can't do everything every time.
No. And the variety is key. I think, especially as far as movement's concerned, just embracing all of it versus just sticking to the stuff you like. Which, back to the climbing thing. I've got a picture of me in a handstand when I got just after I got injured climbing. And then 5 years later, and the difference in the mobility of, like, my body just looks like a different body. The reason I got injured wasn't because I'd overdone that move too many times, which I probably had. It was the fact that I'd not done anything other than climb day in, day out for 3 or 4 years. And
that's why like professional sports people are not necessarily healthy. They're very good at their one sport, but it's not healthy.
No. So
anyway,
I'm a better climber now, doing more diverse stuff and climbing 3 days a week versus the climber I was when I was climbing 5 or 6 days a week, and not looking after myself. So